Hi friends, it's Cindy from She Sparkles, and I wanted to take just a moment and share with you one of my favorite answer prayer stories. This happened a few years ago. I was on staff at a local church as the children's director. The church had opened in February and it exploded right away with people, and this was the first Easter coming up. And it was my responsibility to find volunteers for all the different children's rooms. And so as you can imagine, there were a lot of needs and not a lot of volunteers. And so I spent the Saturday before Easter on the phone all day long trying to round up volunteers so that we could serve God's kids with excellence. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I had more blanks than I had names and barely could sleep that night wondering how we were going to serve all of these kids. The next morning, on Easter morning, as I hopped into the shower, I just said to the Lord, I don't know what we're going to do, but I need you to show up. And during that time, I just started to think about how big and how powerful and mighty God is. And so I said, Lord, I need you to take care of all of these volunteer needs. And in fact, Lord, I'm asking you to provide too many volunteers. I'm asking for a miracle, God. Show us how powerful and mighty you are. And as I headed that day towards church, I just knew that God was going to show up and that He was going to show off in the midst of this church service. Well, wouldn't you know, when I arrived at church, cars started coming from all directions and the building started to fill up. And the volunteers were looking at me like, Cindy, we need more helpers, we need more helpers. And then as the adults started to head into the worship center, which was known as the hangar, suddenly all of the chairs were filled. And my pastor stood up and said, okay friends, we have a problem here. We're out of seats. So if this is your church home, would you mind getting up and giving your seat to someone else? And at that time, it was like an exodus of people standing up, giving up their chairs, and heading towards the back of the room. And there I stood with a clipboard, ready to help put the different persons into children's rooms to serve the kids. And pretty soon I had a nursery worker stick her head out of the window and say, Cindy, we can't take any more volunteers. We have more volunteers than kids right now. We have too many volunteers. And that day, as I drove home, I just clapped my hands all the way home, knowing that once again, God showed how faithful and how true He is. When His children call out to Him, He really does answer. So I don't know what circumstances you're faced with today. Perhaps it's job loss, health concern, marriage struggles, relationship problems. But would you know that your God is faithful? He is mighty, powerful, and desiring to hear from you. Would you just open your hands and call out to Him and let Him know how you are doing? He desires to hear the prayers of His children, and He desires to reveal Himself to you. Thanks so much for stopping by She Sparkles. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.